sacral plexus. The muscular branches, rami muscularis, are distributed to the biceps femoris, semitendinosus, semimembranosus, and adductor magnus. The nerve to the short head of the biceps femoris comes from the common peroneal part of the sciatic, while the other muscular branches arise from the tibial portion, as may be seen in those cases where there is a high division of the sciatic nerve. The tibial nerve, N. tibialis, internal popliteal nerve, the larger of the two terminal branches of the sciatic, arises from the anterior branches of the fourth and fifth lumbar and first, second, and third sacral nerves. It descends along the back of the thigh and through the middle of the popliteal fossa to the lower part of the popliteus muscle, where it passes with the popliteal artery beneath the arch of the soleus. It then runs along the back of the leg with the posterior tibial vessels to the interval between the medial malleolus and the heel, where it divides between the laciniate ligament into the medial and lateral plantar nerves. In the thigh it is overlapped by the hamstring muscles above, and then becomes more superficial, and lies lateral to and some distance from the popliteal vessels. Opposite the knee joint, it is in close relation with these vessels, and crosses to the medial side of the artery. In the leg it is covered in the upper part of its course by the muscles of the calf, lower down by the skin, the superficial and deep fascia. It is placed on the deep muscles, and lies at first to the medial side of the posterior tibial artery, but soon crosses that vessel and descends on its lateral side as far as the ankle. In the lower third of the leg, it runs parallel with the medial margin of the tendo calcaneus. The branches of this nerve are articular, muscular, medial sural cutaneous, medial calcaneal, medial, and lateral plantar. Articular branches, rami articularis, usually 3 in number, supply the knee joint. 2 of these accompany the superior and inferior medial genicular arteries, and a third the middle genicular artery. Just above the bifurcation of the nerve, an articular branch is given off to the ankle joint. Muscular branches, rami muscularis, 4 or 5 in number, arise from the nerve as it lies between the 2 heads of the gastrocnemius muscle. They supply that muscle and the plantaris, soleus, and popliteus. The branch for the popliteus turns around the lower border and is distributed to the deep surface of the muscle. Lower down, muscular branches arise separately or by a common trunk and supply the soleus, tibialis posterior, flexor digitorum longus, and flexor hallucis longus. The branch to the last muscle accompanies the peroneal artery. That to the soleus enters the deep surface of the muscle. The medial sural cutaneous nerve, nervus cutaneus suri medialis, nervus cumanicans tibialis, descends between the 2 heads of the gastrocnemius and about the middle of the back of the leg, pierces the deep fascia, and unites with the anastomotic ramus of the common peroneal to form the sural nerve. The sural nerve, nervus suralis, short saphenous nerve, formed by the junction of the medial sural cutaneous with the peroneal anastomotic branch, passes downward near the lateral margin of the tendo calcaneus, lying close to the small saphenous vein, to the interval between the lateral malleolus and the calcaneus. It runs forward below the lateral malleolus and is continued as the lateral dorsocutaneous nerve along the lateral side of the foot and little toe, communicating on the dorsum of the foot with the intermediate dorsal cutaneous nerve, a branch of the superficial peroneal. In the leg, its branches communicate with those of the posterior femoral cutaneous. The medial calcaneal branches, rami calcaneae medialis, internal calcaneal branches, perforate the laciniate ligament and supply the skin of the heel and medial side of the sole of the foot. The medial plantar nerve, nervus plantaris medialis, internal plantar nerve, the larger of the 2 terminal divisions of the tibial nerve, accompanies the medial plantar artery. From its origin under the laciniate ligament, it passes under the cover of the abductor hallucis, and appearing between this muscle and the flexor digitorum brevis, gives off a proper digital plantar nerve, and finally divides opposite the bases of the metatarsal bones into 3 common digital plantar nerves. Branches. The branches of the medial plantar nerve are 1. Cutaneous, 2. Muscular, 3. Articular, 4. A proper digital nerve to the medial side of the great toe, and 5. 3 common digital nerves. The cutaneous branches pierce the plantar aponeurosis between the abductor hallucis and the flexor digitorum brevis, and are distributed to the skin of the sole of the foot. The muscular branches supply the abductor hallucis, the flexor digitorum brevis, the flexor hallucis brevis, and the first lumbriculus. Those for the abductor hallucis and flexor digitorum brevis arise from the trunk of the nerve near its origin and enter the deep surfaces of the muscles. The branch of the flexor hallucis brevis springs from the proper digital nerve to the medial side of the great toe, and that for the first lumbriculus from the first common digital nerve. The articular branches supply the articulations of the tarsus and metatarsus. The proper digital nerve of the great toe, nervi digitalis plantaris proprii, plantar digital branches, supplies the flexor hallucis brevis and the skin on the medial side of the great toe. The 3 common digital nerves, nervi digitalis plantaris communes, pass between the divisions of the plantar aponeurosis, and each splits into 2 proper digital nerves. Those of the first common digital nerve supply the adjacent sides of the great and second toes, those of the second the adjacent sides of the second and third toes, and those of the third the adjacent sides of the third and fourth toes. The 3rd common digital nerve receives a communicating branch from the lateral plantar nerve. The first gives a twig to the first lumbriculus. Each proper digital nerve gives off cutaneous and articular filaments, and opposite the last phalanx sends upward a dorsal branch, which supplies the structures around the nail, the continuation of the nerve being distributed to the ball of the toe. It will be observed that these digital nerves are similar in their distribution to those of the median nerve in the hand. The lateral plantar nerve, nervus plantaris lateralis, external plantar nerve, supplies the skin of the 5th toe and lateral half of the 4th, as well as most of the deep muscles, its distribution being similar to that of the ulnar nerve in the hand. It passes obliquely forward with the lateral plantar artery to the lateral side of the foot, lying between the flexor digitorum brevis and the quadratus plantae, and in the interval between the former muscle and the abductor digiti quinti, divides into a superficial and a deep branch. Before its division it supplies the quadratus plantae and abductor digiti quinti. The superficial branch, ramus superficialis, splits into a proper and a common digital nerve. The proper digital nerve supplies the lateral side of the little toe, the flexor digiti quinti brevis, and the 2 interosii of the 4th intermetatarsal space. The common digital nerve communicates with the 3rd common digital branch of the medial plantar nerve and divides into 2 proper digital nerves which supply the adjoining sides of the 4th and 5th toes. The deep branch, ramus profundus, muscular branch, accompanies the lateral plantar artery on the deep surface of the tendons of the flexor muscles and the adductor hallucis, and supplies all the interosii except those in the 4th metatarsal space, the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th lumbricules, and the adductor hallucis. End of section 41.